Hey guys, my name is Aubree Danielle and welcome back to my YouTube channel, and today, 12 years later, I'm going to be recreating my very first cake order. Let's get into it. So today I'm going to be remaking and redoing one of the first cakes I ever made when I was like 12 or 13 years old. When I look at this cake, it's funny because it's very similar to what I do today. I think I was a little bit ahead of my time, like if I'm being completely honest. It's very similar, like when I look at like the placement of the flowers and like even the colors and things like this, it very much looks like a 12-year-old did it, but it looks like Aubree did it at 12-year-old, 12 years old, not just like any little kid, So I'm excited to get into this today. We're going to be making a modern kind of version of how I would do it now if someone ordered this cake design. So I'm going to be starting with some chocolate cake. It's funny, my mother was like, I'm surprised you did chocolate cake. And I'm like, I don't know why you're surprised, because it's been my favorite since I was literally a child, since I made this cake. So if I'm just doing something for myself, I'm of course going to choose chocolate because no one else asked for it. So whenever I get to make it, I'm going to. So I have some 8-inch chocolate cake layers right here. And then I'm just going to be filling up the layers. The funny thing about this design, when I was younger, what year was this? Like what year was it when I was 13? 2012 or something like that. This was very much like the style of cakes. Cakes were very like short. Now they're more like tall, extended, and there's like a lot more like whimsical value to them, which is what I also personally like. But I didn't want to take that away completely. So we're going to be doing 2 tiers of chocolate cake, and they're going to be a little bit shorter, just to kind of like mimic the original style. And I'm just filling them up with some vanilla buttercream that I made here. And I'm just going to be layering up the cake just like this. Adding the next one. Now I would usually do like 4 layers of cake, but today I'm going to be doing 3 to kind of mimic the original design of it. It's funny, when I look back at this cake, I'm always like, I'm proud of it, but also I'm like, okay, y'all, I was 12 years old. But whenever I show people, they're like, considering this was your first cake, you should be proud of it. And it wasn't my first cake ever, but it was my first cake order. And I am very proud of it. I mean, I was a kid. I was very excited to get this. I remember it was for a family friend, for a little girl turning 1 year old. And now she's turning like 12 years old, which it's just a crazy like full circle moment for me. But I was really honored to get this order. I remember I was so excited for it. I practiced like for weeks to be able to get it right. And I was so happy with the result of it. I was really proud of it at the time, even though it was far from perfect. But it was very much me. Like, it was a style of cake that I loved and that I still love to this day. So I'm still proud of it. It was cute. So now I'm just stacking up these cakes right here, and then I'm going to start crumb coating it. I still want to make this look like it's for a child, because that's what it was for the first time around. Like, I don't want it to be too wedding-y or too serious almost. I want it to be a little whimsy, which is kind of the style I prefer anyway, so I'm excited to do that today. So I'm going to be crumb coating this first tier of cake. I always say this is the most important part, and it's something that I mastered pretty early on, I think, like as a child, and realized like the more time I spend on this first little layer right here, the better the second layer will be. And it's something I still implement in my business today, even like 12 or 13 years later. I remember what it felt like to get this first order. It was, I don't remember like the day or anything, but I just remember that feeling. I think that's kind of something that like throughout life I can say most of the time I don't remember the day or the moment or anything like that, but I remember how it felt. And it feels the same today. Like, even when I get an order, when I execute it, when someone loves it, like, it's the same feeling I get. And it's just like a level of being proud of myself that I can't even really like put into words. I just feel just seeing something that like I visualized like come to life like this, nothing really compares. And it's, I think, what keeps me going, even like throughout hard times, because there's been many hard times, many long nights, but just thinking about when that couple receives that cake, or when that kid blows out their candles, or it's like a wedding cake, something that's going to be like a part of their lives and a part of their pictures and family photos and something they're going to talk about forever. Like, that's the best feeling in the world, and it makes all the like long nights and hard days like completely worth it. So now I'm just taking some time to fill in these little gaps right here. We're going to be keeping the cake white like the original cake was, but I always crumb coat in white buttercream even if the cake is another color completely, just because it's just a waste of food coloring if I don't do it that way. And since I'm doing like so many cakes at a time, I can just knock it out quick when I do it like this. I have some people who have been following me along for a really long time. You know, it's funny when they tell me like, oh, I've been following you for 5-10 years. And I almost don't believe it sometimes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I've been on the internet for that long. But I wanted to do this video mostly for them, for anyone new, of course, but someone who's been following me along for a long time. Because I feel like you guys know a lot about my business, about my journey, about my cakes, of course, but you don't really know much about me and like who I am as a person outside of Aubree's Cakery. And although it consumes like most of my life, so there's not much, there is still something outside of that and outside of my business that I want you guys to know more about, you know? I really try to like prioritize not making my business my entire life, because there's so much more to life than that. And at the same time, it's kind of all I've known. So if that's what I end up being known for, like, I'm not too mad at it. So now I'm done crumb coating this top layer. I'm gonna stick this in the freezer and then move on to the second layer. Dang, I did that quick. It's so funny, like when I do like cake and tips and stuff like that, and people are like, hold on, slow down. And I'm like, oh, my bad. Okay, I'll be right back. I'm gonna stick this in the freezer and then move on to the second one. So now I'm starting on the second tier of cake, and I'm just doing chocolate cake again. I'm gonna crumb coat it real quick. People always mix up tiers and layers, and even my own mother, and she's been seeing me do this since I was 12, as you all know by now. And she's like, how many layers of cake? People be like, oh, I want a 15-layer cake. And I'm like, no, you don't. No, you don't, sweetie. I know you think you do, and that's okay. But I feel like that's just like a known thing, like throughout the industry, that people don't know the difference. And that's okay. Like, I'm never rude about it, but it's just funny when people say that. They're like, oh, I want 6, 7, 8 layers of cake. And I'm like, you sure about that? So now I'm just doing a little layer of frosting in between that cake, and I'm gonna stick the second one on top just like this. And then do another layer of buttercream in between. This is just American buttercream that I'm using. Usually I use Swiss meringue buttercream in the centers or in the middle layers of my cake because it's really, really yummy. But I'm just doing American today, which is like the most basic. Like, I feel like it's the first thing that everyone learns, like, when they're cake decorating, you know? So I'm just layering this up like this. And then doing the last and final cake layer on top. Just like this, and then I step back, take a look at my work, make sure it's all even. And then I'm gonna start to crumb coat this one. So I'm doing the same thing that I did on that last tier of cake, just locking in all the crumbs with my buttercream. I think a lot of people mess up in their cakes because they skip this part, or not necessarily skip it, but I guess they kind of like zoom through it, when I actually think it's the most important part. And it makes all the difference in the end, basically, if you do the base right, which is like in anything in life, like, you know, it's I was gonna say something else. How you start something really makes the biggest difference in the end. What was life like when I made this cake? Man, I don't even remember. That was so long ago. That was so long ago. I was in middle school. Middle school is rough, as I feel that it is for most people. Like, I low-key feel like middle school should be banned because of how terrible it is for most of the population, especially a girl like me who was the only POC in a sea of whiteness. So yeah, it wasn't the best. But more than anything, I just loved this. I loved creating. I loved art, like, in every form. I always have, until that's kind of what like kept me going. But it definitely wasn't great. Like, it was hard times. I went through a lot, like, in those like formative years. You know, being the only of something, I think, is hard for anyone. But I feel that I've always been confident in who I am and who I was and what I want for my future. I've always been very clear on what I wanted for my future. And that still remains the same today. So bump them. It don't matter what they think. I wonder where they are now. Those kids who weren't very nice to me, but I'm doing my thing now and I'm proud of myself. And so yeah, times get better, but it's definitely not like the fondest of memories for me. But I'm grateful for it. It was, bullying is very humbling and very, it builds character, you know? I feel like I'm funny now because I was bullied, like, you know? So it's kind of like, it wasn't like the traditional, I wasn't like being shoved into lockers and like being pushed around and that type of thing. You know what I mean? It was very like it was just a very isolating time for me. There was times where, like, I remember a very specific like stretch of my life, maybe like 3 or 4 months around that age, where I was just like alone every day. Like, I'd go to school, I was alone, I didn't have any friends, I'd be just like to myself, basically, just from like a group that kind of like started this rumor about me, and then they kind of etched me out like of their little group, and you know, it was like that type of thing. So I feel passionate about, like, it's not always like in your face like what you think it would be, and that's kind of how it was for me. So yeah, it's something that I not necessarily try to like forget. I think I just forget about it in general because it was so long ago, but it's definitely was very like formative years of my life. And I feel like that's for everyone. I feel like I could even talk to them and they were probably like, yeah, like those were the worst years of my life, you know, even though they were the ones who were mean to me. So I feel like that's why I try to give people grace, because hurt people. You never know what someone's going through, you know? So it is what it is now, though. I'm doing what I'm doing, and I'm look cute while doing it, so whatever. So I'm all done with this layer of cake now, or oh my gosh, I did it myself. I'm all done with this tier. It's all crumb coated. I'm gonna stick it in the freezer with the other one, let it set up, and then start going on the next part of the decorating process. So now I'm gonna be starting on the second layer of frosting. I finished the crumb coat on both of my tiers. So now I'm gonna be doing the final coat of buttercream. I'm gonna just be adding this right on top. One of my favorite tips and tricks for this, I usually mix my buttercream in the mixer on low speed for about 10 minutes, and it makes it extra soft and fluffy. I used to think that like you had to make it a little bit stiffer for it to end up being stiffer, but I realized it's butter, so it's gonna stiffen up in the end once you put it in the fridge. And I'd rather make the original texture kind of easier to manipulate instead of like worrying about making it all like stiff in the end, if that made any sense. But those are just things that like I've learned over the years, and I feel like now I've kind of like mastered as I've gotten older. I do want to try other mediums though. Right now I've only done buttercream, but I've heard ganache is really good too, so I do want to get into that. But that's one day. For right now, buttercream works for me, so that's what we're gonna keep on doing. So I'm just smoothing this all around the side of my cake until it's completely covered. And then I'm gonna use my cake scraper, my metal one, to smooth it out. But some things really aren't all that complicated. People think you need the most expensive, the best, this and that. And it's like, girl, go to Amazon. Like, that's what works for me. Some of my tools even aren't even like cake tools. Like, I have scrapers that I've gotten from, they sell like paint scrapers at Home Depot, or I use like makeup brushes or like paint brushes to do different things like that. And anything can be a cake tool if you make it that way. You know, if you clean it right, you can use it for whatever you want, really. It's not always like what you think it has to be, if that makes sense. Most of the time, I have some things that I've been using for 10, 15 years now that were just a random little thing from the Dollar Tree, but it's like, oh, this one's my favorite. Or I have tools because it's sometimes things that are like cheaply made are like more flexible, so it works better. It's really just about like finding what works best for you. Even like when I'm teaching classes and stuff, I tell them like, you have this, but like use what works best for you. I'm telling you to use an offset spatula, but if the flat spatula is working for you, then stick with that. Because everyone's different, you know? Everyone has different bodies, first of all. They hold things differently, so it really just depends on like whatever you're the most comfortable with. So the best investment that I've made in this cake world for sure has been my cake leveler. It's by this brand called Aubree, and it was a couple $100s, so it definitely wasn't cheap, which may not sound like much but for a cake scraper, like that's not cheap, because most of them are 10, 15, 20 bucks from Walmart or Michael's or whatever, but this one was a couple $100, and it has completely elevated my baking game. I think because it's made like an industrial tool, like it's, I guess I should grab it. I'm gonna grab it, I'll be right back. So this is my baby, my, where's the name? My Aubree cake tool, and it's a leveler, and it's very intense. Like, I've cut myself on this a few times because it's so sharp, but the good thing about it is it doesn't bend like when you cut cakes, so I can cut cakes that are cold, and it just works really well. It has a little ruler on the side, so I can always make sure that like it's even, and I can make sure each side is like the same length. And yeah, my boyfriend dropped this when he was helping me out one time, and I almost had to cuss him out. I was like, oh no, that's one thing I don't play about is my cake tools. So, but this is a good one. I've made a lot of bad ones. I'm trying to think of like something specific where I was like, yeah, I should not have bought this. I have a cake safe. It's called a cake safe box. Basically, like you put your large tiered cakes in it, and it's an amazing product, but I was dumb and I didn't measure it correctly, and it's like literally like half a centimeter too big for my car, so I've never been able to use it, and it was like $500. So that wasn't my greatest choice. I was rushing into it. But this one has definitely been the best thing I've ever purchased. Sound was not pretty. I'm sorry. Okay, so we're done with this tier. Well, not done. We still gotta do another layer of buttercream and clean it up and make it all nice and crisp. But this is my first tier or layer of buttercream. I'm gonna put this in the freezer and then switch it out to the other cake. Okay, so now I am doing the second layer of buttercream. Most people just stop here, but you can't stop here. This is when it actually gets good. So I do another layer of buttercream, and I'm really like meticulous about this layer, trying to get it nice and clean. It's a really thin layer. I'm not really adding too much more on there. I'm more so like smoothing it out, filling in some of these like air bubbles, some of like the darker parts up here that kind of like are seeping through. So I'm gonna do a really thin layer of buttercream right now and get it all nice and smooth. So with this one, I'm using a lot of pressure, pushing it all the way into the cake as much as I can, and filling in as many of the gaps as I can. Then I'm gonna go around with my metal scraper and then my plastic scraper on the top to get it nice and clean. An amateur mistake that I typically see in the stage, I feel like people not doing enough with the crumb coat, like I said earlier. I feel like people kind of like skip through that step and they feel like it doesn't matter because it's underneath. But shoot, they say it's not about how you start, it's how you finish. I don't think so. I think it really is about how you start. In this case, really determines how you finish, which I think is how it is in like a lot of art forms. Like, you know, how you start, your base is like the most important part to having like a good finishing. You gotta have that good like clean foundation. Now I'm taking my metal scraper again, and I'm gonna use a lot of pressure this time and really like push it into the cake so that it gets nice and clean. So you can see now just by doing that second layer of cake how much smoother that got. I always find that part so satisfying. I think most people do, like in my videos and stuff. It's fun to me. Well, it's fun when I'm doing it for fun, not necessarily when I have the whole all this pressure riding on my shoulders about making it perfect for someone's wedding or something like that. But when it's just like this, it's fun. So now I'm taking my little plastic scraper. This one's by PME. And again, this was one of those things that's like, wasn't expensive. It's just a piece of plastic, but this is my favorite. I like have these stocked up because nothing else really compares. And it's probably my favorite tool. It's just good. Like, it just fits in my hand perfectly. And you can see it bends, but like not too much. And it's like the perfect like thickness. Like it's just the perfect tool. And like, not me getting all this like smiling and like giddy over over a piece of plastic, but I just love how it like refines my work. Like, did y'all see that? Oh, it was just perfect. It just makes like the perfect sharp corners. And I feel like when I discovered this tool, it like raised my cake decorating game times 10. Like it really does it for me. So right now I am dyeing some buttercream. I'm using Color Mill oil-based food coloring, and I'm doing it to match the colors of the original cake. and to match the colors of these flowers that I'm going to use to put on the cake. So I have some pink and some yellow and some purple. You know what I'm excited for? The Hannah Montana 20th anniversary special. You don't know about the Hannah Montana 20th anniversary special? She was that girl. Like back in the day when I used to watch Hannah Montana and it was like, oh my gosh, like she's famous, I want to be famous, da da da. Like whatever. She just really did it for me. And it's one of those, I think it's like a classic Disney show. I can watch it today and like laugh. It was funny. Miley Cyrus, it's hilarious. Okay, so now I am gonna stack both of my cakes. I'm gonna put some buttercream right in the middle here. When I first made this cake, when I was a child, I didn't know that you had to like add dowels and add support and structure and all that stuff to like make a cake stand and stay through a car ride. So the cake, as we were taking it, my sister took me to deliver it and it was like slowly like leaning. I was getting like air bubbles in the cake and like that type of thing. And yeah, I didn't know at the time. So this picture, it's actually a good picture and it shows a good angle of the cake. But from the other side, it was a little, you know, it was a little lopsided, but you live and you learn. So now I am going to take my little tier right here and I'm just gonna plop it on top just like that. Push it to the middle. Oop, that's not the middle. Push it to the middle. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you tier cake. It's the same exact process if I had 3, 4, 5 tiers, but just this one's little, so it was pretty easy and straightforward. So in the original cake, I did just like horizontal stripes down the side of the cake. I wouldn't do that again now in 2026, but she was cute for its time. I actually think it's funny how like you can see I had a very distinct design, even, or like design style even back then, like the way I liked asymmetrical things. I remember like working really hard on these little like fondant flowers, and I put buttercream and little like pearl sprinkles around it. And so even though this was 10, 12 years ago, like it kind of remains the same to what I do today, just like an older version. So instead of doing like the stripes on it like this, I'm gonna do it a little bit more whimsy. I'm just gonna do like some blotches, some kind of like airbrush style cake or airbrush style buttercream on the sides of the cake, to give kind of like the same color theory. So I'm just gonna do little like blotches of buttercream on the side just like that. I'm gonna do it with all the colors. And then when I go around it and smooth it out with the cake scraper, it'll kind of turn into like kind of like a watercolor type design. So I'm gonna add a little bit of all the colors. I'm gonna do it on the side and as well on the top to kind of follow that same like asymmetrical design. And the thing I like about these kind of like cake styles, it doesn't really have to be perfect. It kind of goes along with the style of cake being like imperfect like this. And this cake originally was for a 1-year-old, so I kind of want to keep that same style, make it kind of whimsical, like I said, kind of like childlike and fun. So now I'm gonna take my scraper again and I'm just gonna go around the side, pushing in the buttercream color so it kind of spreads kind of like a watercolor type design. So I'm gonna start on the side, bring it in just like that. And then you can see, I love this, like I love how like imperfect it is. I'm just gonna add a little bit more of the color, kind of like on the bottom here. And then on the side again, just like that. and on the top. And let's add a little bit more purple as well. I love it. I think it kind of gives the same look as like finger painting or something almost. You know, it's like perfectly imperfect. It sounds silly, but I still love this design. Like, it's just a much younger version of exactly what I would do today. The same placement of the flowers. I love like the big cake topper, how I did one up here. Like, I think I'm really good when it comes to balance, and I think I was even back then. So I think just like little detail type things have improved over time, but overall, like, I'm still me, you know? It's cool looking back and seeing like, oh my gosh, like so much has changed, but also not that much. So I'm gonna do the same thing on the top here. I also use much softer colors now than I did when I was 12 and 13. Like, obviously I'm using much more like kind of like pastel shades, a little bit more subtle overall. So I'm not trying to mimic the exact cake that I did when I was a kid. This is just my more modern, older interpretation of it. What I would do if, say, someone came to me and they were like, this is my color scheme, this is kind of like the theme and what I'm looking for, this is what I would do in 2026. To any young cake decorators, I really would just say to keep going and keep trying. You never know what's gonna stick. You never know like what you're gonna like in 10 years. Like, there's things where at the beginning I liked it and I thought like, oh, this was the only way to do it and this is what I want to do. And now at 24 years old, I still have the same passion, but it's just evolved over time. But I would just say try everything. I've done cakes, I've done cookies, brownies, croissants, I do mug cakes, I've done cake pops, a little bit of everything, and I've learned what I don't like and what I do like. And more than anything, I've learned that you don't have to do anything that you don't want to do. In the beginning, I felt like I had to do everything. Like, I had to offer everything. I had to do dessert tables and just have everything like big and in your face. But I learned like I love cakes. I love cake design. And I think it's what I'm good at. So why not do what you're good at? You know, like, you don't have to be a master of every single trade to be successful. I'm just adding some kind of like detailed elements. Back in the day, I did little like silver sprinkles all the way around. Wouldn't do that in 2026. Little life hack. I'd just take like a little bit of buttercream on my finger. If this was for a client, I would do it with a glove, but it's just for me today. So I take some buttercream on my finger, put the sprinkles on my finger like this, and then you can just dab it into the cake, just like that. And it makes it easy because it's not that like buttercream is stuck on your finger, but it's just kind of like the oil from the butter. And when you have little tiny pearl sprinkles like this, it just helps you overall. Sometimes sometimes I like throw it on the cake too, but I want to be a little bit more detailed today. So I'm gonna just stick it on just like that. I'm gonna do the same thing on the bottom. Put a little bit more buttercream on my finger. I've learned so much just like through trial and error. Even like this little life hack, like just from like doing it over time. I think I saw someone on TikTok do this once. And you just pick up like over time what works, what doesn't work for you. And I've learned that like you don't have to do anything that doesn't work for you, just because there's things I do where I'm technically not supposed to. Not that it's like bad or anything, but it's like that's not the way it's done, but that's how it's done for me. that's how it works for me. So I continue to do it because in most forms of art, there's really no rules. Like, there's no rules. You can do whatever you want, truly. I love all forms of art. I think people don't always see things like cake decorating as art, but I do. I think it's art in like the truest form, you know, in the way of like flavor profiles and flavor combinations and stuff. That's an art form in itself. And then of course the physical like decorating of something is art to the fullest extent, because if it wasn't, then everyone could do it, you know? If it wasn't a skill, then every single person could do it. But I think that even little things like this, like people think, oh, it's easy, you're just throwing colors on there and smoothing it out. But no, like it takes time, it takes practice, and it takes technique, honestly. Like if everyone could do it, then everyone would do it. I think that's so funny when people tell me, like, when I give them a price for a cake, for example, and they're like, oh, I could do that myself. I want to be like, well, then go do it yourself. But like, you're coming to me for a reason, you know, because I've worked on this. You know, I've been working towards this goal for half of my life. So now it's like just like a second language for me. It just comes naturally. And I think it's kind of always come naturally. But even over time, just like learning and developing like my skill and my trade, I really appreciate it as a form of art. And I think it's starting to be appreciated that way, kind of when it comes to like in social media. I think it's cool that I get to showcase like what I do in a very detailed fashion, more than like if you were to see it on TV or just seeing a finished cake. But you get a behind the scenes look into like what this actually looks like for me. So now, instead of doing little fondant flowers, I'm gonna be using real flowers because it's my favorite thing to do. I just love how fresh flowers look on cake. It just brings the cake to life completely. So I'm gonna be using some roses and some daisies and just all the same colors that I used when I first did this cake a long time ago, but in fresh flowers. I've never decorated a cake drunk before. I should try that sometime. I feel like it would be fun. Or, I don't know how good it would turn out, but it would be a lot of fun. For my cake and tip events, it's always so much fun, like seeing everyone like loosen up. At first, everyone's nervous, especially because people don't necessarily like come together every time. Sometimes it's one person from here, one person from there. And so they're nervous, like they don't know each other. These are strangers. And so in the beginning, everyone's all quiet and shy. Then by that like second, third glass of wine, oh my God, the room just like, I can always tell when like, oh, okay, it's hitting everyone. The room just like erupts with just like joy and laughter. And it's people that sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, y'all know each other? And they're like, no, we met today. Like we've never met each other before. But all of a sudden they're best friends. Like I love creating opportunities for people to find connection, especially for me personally. Like that's something I've struggled with in the past, is finding deep connections with people, just because of like some of my struggles. Like I mentioned earlier, like within school, I've had a lot of situations where I got close to someone and then they moved, or I moved, or something else happened and just got in the way. And so that's really special to me to see, like, to create opportunities and experiences for people to connect in the way that I kind of wish that I had, or wish that I could sometimes. I love using fresh flowers on cake. I always get my flowers from this little flower shop in Riverside. It's called Gazebo Canyon Crest. And it's the sweetest ladies own this shop. I remember I went in a couple years ago looking for flowers And I had been to this other shop before where I went in, I told them what I needed, and they just weren't really like giving me the vibes I was looking for, I guess. It was like kind of off-putting. They didn't really seem like they wanted to help me. And so then I went to this other flower shop, and immediately they were just so kind and so sweet to me. I love the women that own that shop. They are just the kindest ladies. They always help me out with what I need. I've made them cakes before because they know who I am and they know what I need when I come in. So this is where I got these fresh flowers from. And yeah, I love like supporting my community and finding places within my community that I can support who support me back. Now I'm gonna keep putting these flowers on the cake. I love how this one is turning out. It's very like Easter vibes, very soft and pastel. That's definitely like my favorite type of vibe. I always like to cut the stems of my flowers longer, like way longer than you think you would need to, because it makes it, it adds a lot of height to the cake, and it just makes it more of like a showstopper. I used to not do this. I would just do, I guess, kind of like the original cake here, where I would just kind of stick them to the cake like this, but now I like it to be a lot more out and open, and kind of look like a garden, just kind of like blooming out of the cake. I'm using some of these little Billy balls for the yellow. Oh, they're so cute. It definitely gives like, I don't know, it just looks like a little girl turning one, like a girl's like dream little princess cake is kind of like how I see it. And I'm kind of using it to represent the yellow color on the cake. Okay, so now I'm gonna do some more of these little buds from the Lysianthus, which is the purple flower right here. Again, I'm gonna do it. I love how these look because they naturally kind of grow at a curve like this. And I'm gonna stick it in just like that. And then I'm gonna do one more right next to it. Oop, not like that. Right next to it, just like that. And then I'll stick some down here. And right like this. I feel like I have done this enough at this point where I kind of know how the flow works. I know what works well. I know what I like and what I don't like. So I can knock these flower placement out. Oh my gosh, that wasn't English. I can knock out these flower placements on the cake pretty quick at this point. So I'm just gonna do one more over here. I like to do things in odd numbers. I think that's a mistake a lot of people make, is they do it very like even and cohesive. It's like 2 here, 2 there, but I like it kind of like off balance a little bit. And it just gives like the most beautiful, like, I keep saying whimsical, but that's just like what I'm getting from this cake design. Yeah, perfect. So now I'm done with all the flowers. I have this little cake topper that says 1, just like this. This was for a little girl. Her name was Sophia. She turned 1 when I made this cake for her. And so I found this little topper and I thought it would be perfect to finish off this cake design. Okay. Perfect. Not perfect. Hold on. I don't like that. Okay, well, I messed up and I put this somewhere that I thought I was gonna like it, but I didn't end up liking it. So we are gonna fix our mistake real quick. I feel like that's the other part of cake decorating is the good thing about cakes like this is it doesn't have to be perfect. So you can just cover up your mistake with a little sprinkle just like that. And who's gonna know? Just like this. And I wasn't planning on using these, but we are today. But it looks cute. Actually, I'm glad I added that because it kind of like added to the overall design. And it looks really good in my opinion. Okay, so I added that just in like a little asymmetrical pattern. And now we can figure out where to put this one because I did not like how I did it the first time. Okay. Yeah, this is better. So this time I'm gonna put it right in the front, just like this. Perfect. And then, yeah. And I think with that finishing touch, we are all done. Oh, it's so cute. It's like the most perfect pastel, just floral little beautiful fairy cake for a 1-year-old or for anyone. Honestly, I would like this for myself at 24 years old. She turned out so cute. I'm so proud and happy with this one. So we are all done recreating one of my very first cake orders. I love how it came out. This is something that's been on my mind and I've been wanting to do for a while, especially since it's been a whole decade since I did it in the beginning. And I just love how it turned out. I love the details, the fresh flowers, the colors, the little cake topper, and like the gold little sprinkles. I just think it came out so perfect. I hope you guys loved this video and learned something from it and enjoyed learning a little bit more about me and about my journey. If you want to keep following along my journey, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel as well as follow me on Instagram and TikTok, all at Aubree's Cakery as well as Cake and Company. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and let me know what you guys thought and what you want to see next from me in the comments below. All right, bye guys.